Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. We've been getting a lot of messages lately about, well, one thing in particular, this kind of silent relationship killer,
Oh, yeah.
resentment. And it's something that we all know can be a problem in marriages, but we don't always know how to spot it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, one of you sent in this article about warning signs of resentment in marriage, and I think it's going to be really illuminating for us to go through. So let's jump right in.
Okay, so to start off, we should probably define what we're actually talking about when we say resentment, right?
Yeah.
Because it's more than just being annoyed.
Mhm.
This article defines it as kind of like this deep, lingering anger or bitterness you feel toward your partner. And it usually stems from feeling wronged or treated unfairly, like over and over again.
Right, and the article is really interesting because it talks about how this can be a super gradual process. Like you don't just wake up one day and bam, you resent your spouse.
Right.
It sort of builds up over time, often without either person really noticing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to be able to recognize the signs early on, before it gets to the point where it's causing some serious damage to the relationship.
Exactly, like catch it before it festers. And that's what we're going to do today, right? Dive into those signs, see what we can learn.
Sounds good.
Let's do it. Okay, so the first sign the article talks about is this feeling of persistent anger in your partner's presence. And I think this is something a lot of people can relate to on some level, but the article stresses that this is different from just normal bickering or getting annoyed every now and then. This is more like a deep-seated frustration that seems to get triggered just by them being around.
Yeah, and you start to feel like burdened almost when they're around. And then when they're not there, you feel this sense of relief, like, finally. And that's a big problem, right? Because marriage should be about feeling safe and comfortable with your partner, not relieved when they're gone.
Yeah, huge red flag. Okay, now the next sign is super interesting to me. External prioritization over spouse. So the article talks about how in a healthy marriage, ideally your spouse is your go-to person, right?
Hmm.
For everything, for support, for advice. But when resentment sets in, you might find yourself increasingly turning to other people first, like friends, family, even coworkers, like anyone but your spouse.
Yeah, it's almost like you're subconsciously putting up this wall between you and your partner and then filling that void with other people.
Right. Like the article says, you end up in this roommate arrangement where you're living together, but you're not really connecting on that deeper level anymore. And of course, that just leads to more resentment because your needs aren't getting met within the marriage.
Exactly. It becomes a vicious cycle. Okay, moving on. The third sign is comparative thinking. And I think we're all guilty of this to some extent, but the article is talking about something more specific, right? Like when resentment takes hold, you start constantly comparing your spouse to other people, and not in a good way.
Yeah, like they can't do anything right in your eyes, and everyone else seems so much better. And often, the article points out, this happens when one partner is just like refusing to change certain behaviors that are really upsetting the other person.
And it's so easy to get caught up in that trap,
Right.
right? Because we only see the highlight reel of other people's lives. We don't see all the behind-the-scenes stuff that every couple deals with.
Absolutely. So you're comparing your reality to this idealized version of someone else's relationship, which is just not fair. Okay, now this next one is a biggie. Recycling past mistakes. We've all been there, right? An argument starts, and suddenly you're bringing up that one time 5 years ago when they forgot to pick up the dry cleaning.
Oh, yeah. And the article really emphasizes that this is a sign of unresolved resentment because instead of letting go and moving forward, you're holding on to those past hurts and using them as weapons in every new disagreement.
It's like you're stuck in this loop of negativity, never really addressing the current problem because you're too busy rehashing old ones. And speaking of moving on, if you're a divorced woman listening and you're maybe thinking about getting back into the dating game, we want to offer you a resource that could be really helpful.
Yeah, before you jump back into the dating pool, it's super important to make sure you're not repeating old patterns. So we've got this amazing tool called the Post-Divorce Safety Audit, and it's completely free.
It's a great way to sort of check your type and make sure you're not falling into the same traps again. You can find the link in the description or the comments below. Definitely check it out.
For sure. Okay, now back to the list. Number 5 is communication shutdown. And we're not just talking about, not talking about your feelings, although that's important too. The article specifically calls out the silent treatment as a major red flag.
Ugh, the silent treatment. It might seem like a way to avoid conflict, but it's actually the opposite.
Right, because you're not actually addressing the problem, you're just shutting down, and that just builds up resentment even more. And the worst part is sometimes it can be used as a way to control or manipulate your partner, which is really unhealthy.
It's like you're punishing them with your silence, and nobody wins in that situation. Okay, sign number 6 is attraction erosion. And this one kind of makes sense, right? When you're feeling resentful towards someone, it's natural for your attraction to them to start to fade.
And this can be both physical and emotional. Like the article talks about how even the thought of being physically intimate with your partner might start to feel uncomfortable or even repulsive. And that's a pretty clear sign that something's really wrong.
Yeah, it's like that resentment is creating this barrier between you, preventing you from connecting on that intimate level.
Okay, now this next one is tough to talk about, but it's important. Public degradation. Yeah, so this is when the resentment starts to spill over into how you talk about your partner to other people. And it might start small, like making little jokes at their expense or casually mentioning their flaws, but over time it can become more and more negative.
And that's a really dangerous territory to get into because, first of all, it's incredibly disrespectful to your partner, but it also shows that you don't value them or the relationship and you're willing to put them down to get a laugh or make yourself look better.
Totally. Okay, now the final sign, and the article says this might be the most destructive one, is deliberate provocation.
Okay, so this is where resentment goes from passive to active, right? It's not just feeling angry or bitter, it's actively trying to make your partner upset.
Exactly. And the article gives some really specific examples, like playing loud music when you know they're trying to concentrate, or purposely being messy or disorganized, or even being financially irresponsible just to cause them stress.
It's basically saying, I know this will make you unhappy and I'm going to do it anyway. And that's a really toxic dynamic to have in any relationship.
So now that we've gone through all these signs, the article talks about how to actually move forward. And it stresses that the first step is simply recognizing that resentment is present in your relationship.
Right, like acknowledge the elephant in the room. Because you can't fix something if you don't admit it's broken. And from there, the article talks about the importance of open and honest communication.
Yeah, you have to be willing to talk about those deeper issues that are fueling the resentment. And both partners have to be committed to listening and really trying to understand each other's perspective.
And then, of course, there's forgiveness. And that doesn't mean forgetting or condoning the behavior, but it does mean letting go of that anger and bitterness so you can actually move forward together.
Hmm. And the article also mentions that sometimes, especially if the resentment has been building for a long time, it can be really helpful to seek professional help, like couples therapy, to guide you through that process.
So the takeaway here is that resentment is a serious problem, but it's not insurmountable. If you can catch it early, communicate openly and honestly, and commit to working through it together, there's hope for healing and rebuilding that connection.
Absolutely.
All right, so now that we've gone through all of that, we want to leave you with a question to think about. Of all the signs we discussed today, which one do you think might be the trickiest to spot in yourself or your partner, and why?
It's a good question to reflect on.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's those subtle shifts that can be the most dangerous because they sneak up on you.
And before we go, if you're looking for more dating and relationship advice, make sure to check out unleash.dating. We've got tons of great resources over there to help you navigate the complexities of modern love.
He's a great resource.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. See you next time.